I'm going to be direct. Most civilians believe conflict announces itself with warnings, timelines, and clarity. It doesn't. What gets people hurt is not lack of intelligence, but reliance on assumptions built by movies, drills, and so-called common sense. The first are matters more than the following weeks because instinct drives action before information stabilizes. In that hour, people move when they should stay when they should move, communicate incorrectly, and expose themselves unnecessarily. They feel prepared because they recognize the scenario. That recognition is false confidence. This is not speculation and it's not theory. I'm not here to stoke fear, push politics, or predict events. I'm addressing reaction under uncertainty. This is corrective guidance based on how situations actually unfold, not how they're explained afterward. Much of this is rarely taught to civilians because it's operational, not academic, and it contradicts what feels intuitive under stress responses form. I'm speaking from direct operational experience, including prior military service and crisis response roles outside training environments. I've dealt with real disruptions where information was incomplete, command structures were unclear, and consequences were immediate. That perspective matters because civilian life is optimized for stability, while military environments are controlled, rehearsed, and supported by hierarchy and logistics. Civilians don't have those buffers, yet they often assume similar warning and coordination will exist. That structural mismatch is why sudden strategic shock causes disproportionate harm. I'm not sharing classified material or teaching tactics for fighting. My role here is translation. I'm applying military crisis logic to civilian decision-making so actions reduce chaos, limit exposure, and preserve options. This is about staying functional only. By World War III, I mean functional conditions, not political declarations. I'm referring to the moment civilians first experience strategic disruption, communications degrade, infrastructure behaves unpredictably, and confusion spreads faster than explanation. These principles apply regardless of country, alliance, or ideology. My baseline assumptions are simple. Civilians receive no meaningful warning. Information is incomplete, delayed, and often wrong. Systems fail before anyone understands why they're failing. I'm limiting this strictly to the first 60 minutes because that window shapes everything that follows. Early actions lock in exposure, mobility, and options long before facts arrive, and consequences compound rapidly without correction. Misconception 1 is waiting for official instructions. Official messaging lags reality because authorities verify, coordinate, and control panic, which costs time civilians do not have. Misconception 2 is needing to know what's happening first. That creates intelligence paralysis, where people freeze seeking certainty instead of acting under uncertainty with limited but usable cues. Misconception 3 is believing it won't affect me right away. Second and third order effects hit civilians fast through payment failures, fuel access, transportation disruption, and information overload. Misconception 4 is assuming you can just leave if it gets bad. Early movement happens during peak confusion, degraded navigation, and unpredictable enforcement, making travel riskier than staying put initially. Misconception 5 is thinking preparedness means gear. Equipment without decisions creates delay, noise, and exposure. Instinctive reactions prioritize familiarity, speed, and social proof. Trained responses prioritize control, isolation, verification, and reversibility. These failures are psychological, not moral. People aren't careless or stupid. Their brains default to peacetime heuristics that misfire under shock. The correction is not bravery or supplies. It is recognizing when instinct is wrong and applying deliberate restraint, even when that feels counterintuitive, slow, or socially uncomfortable. Under stress, people copy crowds, seek authority figures, and chase updates, mistaking activity for progress. Trained response suppresses that impulse, buys time, reduces visibility, and preserves decision space. Waiting, moving, calling, or posting can each increase exposure when done automatically. The point is not perfection, It is avoiding irreversible mistakes made too early. Most harm comes from actions taken before context stabilizes. Understanding this gap between instinct and trained behavior is the core lesson of the first hour. These misconceptions persist because they feel responsible, informed, and proactive, yet they amplify risk during chaos, proving that calm restraint and limited action outperform urgency in the opening minutes of initial crisis. Minute 0 to 10 is the confusion phase. Alerts conflict, rumors circulate, and partial outages appear without explanation. Phones work intermittently, apps refresh unevenly, and official channels contradict each other. Normalcy bias dominates, so people interpret anomalies as glitches rather than indicators. They keep routines, assume resolution, and delay adjustment. Minute 10 to 20 brings information overload. Social media floods timelines with claims, images, and confident interpretations. Reliability collapses because speed is rewarded over accuracy. False certainty spreads faster than facts, and repetition creates belief. People mistake volume for verification and react to the loudest narrative available. Minute 20 to 40 is infrastructure instability. Communications degrade further as networks strain or are throttled. Transportation disrupts unevenly through signals, payments, fuel access, and congestion. Supply access begins to constrict as systems pause, reroute, or lock. These failures appear disconnected, causing people to misdiagnose causes and underestimate duration. Minute 40 to 60 shows behavioral divergence. Some follow crowds, seeking safety in numbers, while others isolate and reduce exposure. Panic purchasing competes with freezing and inaction. Both are visible, but neither is inherently informed. Civilians misread these signals because they expect violence to be the indicator. They look for explosions, gunfire, or uniformed presence to validate seriousness. Systemic breakdown is quieter, abstract, and harder to recognize, yet it carries broader consequences. When nothing dramatic is seen, people assume safety persists. That assumption is wrong. Lack of explosions does not equal stability. The real risk emerges through cascading failures that restrict movement, communication, and choice before anyone understands the scope. The first hour is not cinematic, it is administrative collapse experienced personally. Recognizing that difference prevents misinterpretation and delays that magnify exposure long after the window closes. Early indicators feel technical, boring, and dismissible, so civilians downgrade them. They expect clarity, timelines, and authority cues that never arrive. System failures propagate silently across finance, logistics, and coordination layers. By the time consequences feel personal, options have narrowed. The absence of noise masks escalation, while quiet disruption steadily removes autonomy, mobility, and margin for error before decisions harden and recovery becomes slow and externally constrained. Priority 1 is freezing movement, not action. I stay put unless my location is already unsafe. Early movement exposes me to crowds, enforcement, and unknown conditions. Stillness buys observation time without committing to irreversible paths. Priority 2 is securing information channels. I want redundancy over accuracy. Multiple weak signals beat one trusted source that fails. I monitor, I don't react. Priority 3 is protecting my immediate physical space. I control lighting, manage access points, and reduce visibility. I'm not fortifying, I'm lowering profile and preventing surprises. Priority 4 is accounting for people, not supplies. I check family, dependents, and nearby neighbors. Humans create obligations and risks that gear cannot solve later. Priority 5 is time-based thinking. I act as if systems will worsen, not improve. I front-load caution and preserve resources. Each priority is plain because complexity collapses under stress. The sequence matters more than any checklist. Movement decisions come after information, not before. Space control comes before resupply, people come before things. These steps don't provide comfort. They buy clarity by slowing the situation down enough for better choices. Clarity preserves options, comfort creates exposure. In the first hour, my goal is not resolution, it is positioning. I'm shaping my environment so later decisions are informed, reversible, and limited in consequence. By resisting urgency, I reduce errors driven by instinct. These actions look passive, but they are deliberate. They reduce noise, visibility, and commitment. That restraint is what keeps the next hour manageable, even as systems degrade and outside behavior becomes less predictable. I avoid optimizing or improvising. I document changes mentally, not publicly. I conserve power, attention, and credibility. I assume delays compound. I avoid signaling distress or confidence. I let others rush. I do not chase supplies or confirmation. I treat silence as information. I maintain flexibility until patterns stabilize and external pressure forces commitment. This approach frustrates observers, but frustration is irrelevant. The objective is controlled exposure, reduced reversibility cost, and preserved agency while the environment clarifies. That mindset, applied early, consistently outperforms speed, visibility, and reactive problem solving. Under pressure, patience becomes an operational advantage. Do not travel toward perceived safety centers. Crowds concentrate there, creating bottlenecks, accidents, and enforcement attention. Secondary threats emerge from density, panic, and opportunistic behavior, not the initial disruption. Do not broadcast intentions or locations. Social media posts, calls, and messages create vectors for targeting, coercion, or misdirection. Silence preserves options. Do not chase confirmation or breaking news. Rapid consumption increases cognitive load, amplifies false certainty, and prompts premature action. Do not drain financial or fuel resources impulsively. Sudden depletion leaves you exposed if systems fail longer than expected. Do not attempt to beat the rush. Early movement often intersects with other panicked actors, degraded infrastructure, and unrecognized hazards. Visibility increases risk. Being seen triggers reaction, draws attention, and reduces maneuver space. Restraint is not passivity. It is active, deliberate, and disciplined. It requires awareness of instinctive impulses, recognition of cascading consequences, and control over timing. The first R penalizes overreaction. Acting aggressively, visibly, or based on incomplete signals magnifies exposure more than delay or inaction. Civilian error is almost always social, procedural, and psychological. Success depends on suppressing instinctive drives in favor of deliberate observation, measured decision-making, and maintenance of options while the environment clarifies. Civilians don't realize how quickly stress hijacks perception. Heart rate spikes, attention narrows, and time either stretches or compresses, making seconds feel like minutes and minutes vanish. Cognitive narrowing limits the ability to see options, anticipate consequences, or process contradictory signals. Simple methods slow decision-making without freezing, controlled breathing, verbalizing steps, and pausing to verify before acting. Default plans outperform real-time creativity because improvisation under compression often magnifies mistakes. Emotional neutrality is a tool, not a denial of fear. It keeps reactions aligned with situational reality rather than instinctive narrative. This is discipline, not bravery, suppressing impulses, maintaining composure, and following pre-decided sequences preserves options and reduces exposure. Processing under shock bias clarity and time, which are far more valuable than immediate action, courage, or visibility. Preparedness is mental sequencing, not stockpiling. It is the ability to recognize signals, pause, and act in the right order. The first R is not about comfort or heroism. It is about avoiding irreversible mistakes before facts stabilize. I speak from direct experience, not theory, observing patterns civilians rarely see. Calm, early decisions determine the shape of all later options. Position, observation, and restraint create leverage that gear alone cannot provide. Most people don't fail from lack of supplies. They fail from reacting the way they were conditioned to, following instinct instead of structured, deliberate response during the critical opening moments.